the 1310 News app for your phone or tablet.
Number one for breaking news. This is 1310 News, Ottawa.
It's Sunday, October 11th. Good morning. I'm Deborah Ryder. Right now in Ottawa, it's partly cloudy skies at 5 degrees. The 1310 News top story. The Gatineau region is officially under a red zone alert. This after Quebec's provincial police set up checkpoints along roads leading into the province this Thanksgiving weekend. It's all in an attempt to try to stop the spread of COVID-19. Authorities are reminding everyone they should only be traveling in or out of red zones if absolutely necessary. Nearly every community along the St. Lawrence River is now considered a red zone. Meanwhile, Ontario health officials reported 809 new COVID-19 cases on Saturday alone, with 7 new deaths reported. As of Saturday, Ottawa is reporting 94 new cases, and Toronto leading the way with 358 new cases, followed by the Peel region with 123 new cases. As the second wave of the COVID-19 washes over the country, Canadians from coast to coast are being asked to limit the size of their Thanksgiving gatherings or keep them entirely virtual.
With daily case counts continuing to rise in several provinces, increased restrictions came into effect in some hotspots heading into the long weekend. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has urged people to stick to their immediate households, saying it's too risky even to expand the celebration to the current indoor gathering limit of 10 people. Now that message coming as the province imposed harsher restrictions on the hard-hit areas of Toronto, Ottawa, and Peel region. Rob Westgate, The Canadian Press.
Canada's chief public health officer says the spread of COVID-19 is shifting towards seniors.
Dr. Theresa Tam says in a statement that while the summer saw cases concentrated in people in their 20s and 30s, infection rates are now accelerating in older populations. Tam says reports of outbreaks in long-term care centers and retirement homes have been rising in recent weeks, but she says they seem to be more contained than the eruption of cases that overwhelmed several facilities in the spring. Still, Tam says it's a troubling trend given the heightened health risks the virus poses to older Canadians. Emily Trubesky, The Canadian Press.
1310 News Time, 10:02. A new report finds there are more people living in slavery today than any other time in human history, and most of them are female.
29 million women and girls are living in modern slavery today. That's more than the population of Australia. This according to the latest report from Walk Free, an anti-slavery organization. The report finds women account for 99% of all victims of forced sexual exploitation and 84% of all victims of forced marriage. And a spokesperson says the actual numbers could be higher with the pandemic, which has exacerbated the trends. A joint campaign with the UN is underway to end child and forced marriages, which 136 countries still don't criminalize. Yuni Han, BBC News.
It's day one after the province reimposed some business lockdowns and are asking people to stay at home for at least 28 days in hotspots. Gyms, movie theaters, and casinos in Toronto, the Peel region, and Ottawa have been ordered to close, ending indoor dining at bars and restaurants. Wedding receptions will also be temporarily suspended after the Thanksgiving long weekend. The move comes as the province reported a record 939 new cases of COVID-19 on Friday. And Premier Doug Ford has announced $300 million in funding to help these small businesses impacted by renewed closures in COVID-19 hotspots. Ford says provincial and municipal property taxes will be waived for those businesses, along with hydro and natural gas bills. He says the decision to reimpose restrictions in Ottawa, Toronto, and the Peel region is painful because he knows it will hurt businesses that are already struggling. But he says if current trends aren't reversed, the province could experience worst-case scenarios seen in northern Italy and New York earlier in the pandemic. I'm Deborah Ryder, 1310 News. For news at any time, follow us online at ottawamatters.com.
It's time for the Weekend Gardener with Nikki Jabor. Everything you need to know from the ground up on 1310 News. Now, here's Nikki.
As I've been broadcasting from my basement, and Sam has been holding down the fort in the News 95.7 studio in downtown Halifax. It's been a challenge, but Sam, you've made it super smooth, and thank you so much for all that hard work. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you to all of you guys, all of our listeners. I've loved reading your tweets, seeing your garden photos, your harvest pics, and just hearing what you've been up to in your own gardens. It inspires me, and of course, we are very grateful to be a part of your Sunday. And we have a big show lined up for you today as well. In just a moment, I'll talk to one of the biggest voices in horticulture, Margaret Roach. She is the author of many excellent books, including A Way to Garden, and is also behind one of the top gardening websites, which has the same name, awaytogarden.com. Then Chloe Kennedy, a waste resource education officer with the City of Halifax, joins me to talk about fall composting, how to turn those autumn leaves into garden gold. In our second hour, Lisa Mullins, the lead author of the newly released report from Dalhousie University, their agri-food analytics lab. It basically explored the pandemic gardening boom, and we're going to talk about that. And Emily Moore of Halifax Seed. They have got a new line of seeds they're bringing out, and she's also got a few indoor fall gardening ideas for us too. And finally, in our last half hour, we're going to end the show, as we have for most of the seasons here on The Weekend Gardener, with Craig LaHoulier, the author of Epic Tomatoes. But first, Margaret Roach joins me. She is a New York Times columnist, the author of A Way to Garden, along with several other excellent books. And A Way to Garden was updated and re-released in 2019 and is available wherever books are sold. And she's also behind the wildly popular website of the same name, and her podcast can also be found there at awaytogarden.com. Margaret, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm watching birds out the window.
I figured you might be, actually.
Yes, well, my friends are coming back one by one.
Oh, I love it. And of course you write extensively on A Way to Garden about your love of birds, as well as nature in general in your garden. But, birds seem to have a real special connection to you with the garden. Like, when you made your garden, a couple decades ago, did you do that with birds in mind?
Well, I made a garden, and by that I guess I mean I was a New York City born and raised person. Got a weekend home 30 years ago in a couple of hours north of the city in a rural county in New York State. And as I was out there sort of beginning to prep what would become my garden, taking out brambles and fallen trees and whatever, I kept seeing all these interesting creatures, and I didn't know their names, and, they weren't familiar. And I would watch, and I would notice that certain ones always were way up high in the trees, and certain ones were always in the shrubbery, and certain ones were eating this, and certain, and I started to what's its name, and what does it do, and why is it here, and why is it doing that behavior, and started to learn about the birds. And then, of course, I wanted to make them happier, so more of them visited, and wanted to learn what plants to put in, blah, blah, blah. So I became sort of a habitat-style gardener as a result of their inspiration.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of us, we get a new property, and the first thing you do is, get rid of everything to make a blank space to start a whole new garden, which is probably a mistake if you want to invite birds and wildlife to your garden, because you're taking everything away and trying to rebuild. So you didn't do that.
Well, in the beginning, I didn't know very much. It was going to become an education with their inspiration, but I didn't know much, and plus I was sort of a collector plant person. I was a beginning gardener, but I was discovering all these unusual. I had a bunch of friends who were really, really keen horticulture people in New York City at the botanical gardens, and they turned me on to all these rare plant catalogs and blah, blah, blah. And so I sort of had this conflict between, I want all those unusual plants, and I want all these native birds, and the two didn't necessarily match. And that's been probably the greatest education of all, which is that horticulturists traditionally have wanted rare plants, a lot of which come from your showy things for aesthetic purposes, traditionally have come from Asia or Eurasia. Our garden plants, hosta, SLB, you name it, a lot of it comes from there. And birds or wildlife want native, right, and want messy, not perfect everything like a gardener may want for horticulture. So it's an interesting tension, but it's taught me a lot. And I have both now, which I'm happy about. I have my pretty beds right around the house that are a little less bird-ish, and then I have a lot of rooster things going on too. So I feel like that's a good compromise.
Oh, for sure. And there's so much information about your garden and how you have, kind of encouraged and planted and created for the birds on awaytogarden.com. But even I noticed, because I get your newsletter every week, I read the blog all the time. On Away to Garden, your latest article touches on birds. It's basically about deepening our nature connections. I think that has been something a lot of us have done or been more mindful of this year. Did you find in 2020 that, it's been more important to you than ever?
Absolutely. I live by myself, and there's nobody to talk to. So guess who I talk to?
Talk to the birds. That works for me.
Good thing they don't have a spy camera out looking at what I do. But so they have pet names, and I don't mean pet like a house pet, but tender names, and I speak in a funny little childlike voice to them, and and okay, whatever keeps you going, right? This isn't insane. This is a dystopian experience we're having. So, and the other thing about them is that, as I said at the beginning, when familiar faces are coming back, like the juncos just returned about 2 weeks ago, the white-throated sparrow, these are birds who go further up toward into Canada for the summers and then come to like my latitude for the winters, so, and even further south. When they come back, there's a sense of normalcy that we haven't had a lot of this year. It's like, oh, right, things are on schedule. Oh, right, things are working right. And that's so comforting, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a routine has become such a part of all of our lives at this point. Even the changing of the seasons, the returning of the birds. And I mean, you get a lot of different species, because I know you've written about the fact that you get over 60 species. First of all, it's impressive you can, name over 60 species of birds, but you get a lot. Did you have any this year maybe that you hadn't seen before in your garden?
I don't think there was anybody that I'd never seen before, but there were a few where I saw, say, the female, where maybe I've only seen the male, or, do you know what I mean, where it was like a little bit of, or I saw a larger group, like certain warblers. I had a group of just black and white warblers, something I always have, but I had more of them, and they were right by the house, and they came day after day after day, right around actually late afternoon or evening. And so I got to really get to know them, That's what's wonderful. It's like when birds nest really close to the house. And that's been really fun. And then Carolina wrens, which are a bird with a little bird with a lot of personality, like all the wrens. I've never, in all the years I've been here, until last fall, a year ago, when I started hearing this unknown voice right by the house, I've never had them spend the whole year right with me, right in, immediately next to the house. And I have the family now. I have the next generation, and they're real chatty and they're really funny. They tried to nest in a watering can in the garage.
Nice.
That was a little bit of a conflict. Yeah. So, you meet new birds, even though you know the birds, you may never have had them right next to you for so long, and that's fun too.
And they have such personalities. Like, I've had more chickadees in my garden this year than ever before. I was just up there 5 minutes before we started picking some parsley, and their chickadees were just singing their little song to me, picking at all the sunflower seeds. And it's just a joy to have them out there when you're working or puttering in the garden.
Yes, and I found that with it being, we had a droughty year, and I don't know if you did as well.
Big time.
But it was very dry here and throughout my region, and I find that more animals in general of all kinds seem to seek out our moister, more irrigated, places where we're practicing horticulture or farming, gardening, growing vegetables. There's a sense of plenty in our home environments compared to like the dry forest in the drought season. Do you know what I mean? So
that makes sense.
Find that I get more, plus I have water in the garden, and that's the point I'd want to make. If people can only do one thing, especially with the winter approaching, get one of those heated pet bowls and put a couple of rocks in it. This is a trick I learned from Julie Zickoff, who's the great nature writer. Get one of those heated pet bowls that keeps the water unfrozen. Even if you don't have a big water garden or whatever, and put water out for the birds all winter, and oh boy, will they be appreciative, to engage, and the delight you'll have and the delight they'll have.
Because I think a lot of us think we need a big source of water, like a pond or a little stream or something, but you don't really.
No, and just that or one of those little immersion heaters that can go if you have a bird bath that's weatherproof, you can put just that in. You don't need to clean the water every, few days or a week or whatever. But just by doing something like that, it's such a touch point, such a connection.
Yeah, that's great too.
I heat as well in the winter.
Yes, I will definitely be doing getting a heated. I never thought about getting a heated. I've heard of bird bath heaters, but I didn't think about a heated pet bowl. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, she uses Julie. She's in Ohio, and she uses. And she's a wildlife rehabilitator, a really wonderful woman who's written a lot of great books about birds. And she gets one of those heated pet bowls, and she puts rocks in it, so that they have like a platform to then drink, so that they don't bathe in it and foul the water so quickly, but they perch on the rock and drink from around the margins, in the water, which is great. A great idea.
And if people want to check out your interview with her, they can go to awaytogarden.com because, again, that is one of your latest podcasts. Yeah. People can tune into and hear that conversation. Yeah. It was fantastic.
But there's lots of important steps, for attracting birds and making birds happy in your garden, I think, but water's important.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about more of those, including, being a little more messy and things like that. But let's take a quick break, Margaret, and then come back and delve into that a little bit, and even maybe a bit about being a good bird landlord if you do put up bird houses around your property as well. Yeah. Again, the book, Away to Garden, it's available wherever books are sold, as well as online. And, of course, you can tune into the podcast, and there are so many awesome ones. If you haven't discovered Margaret's podcast yet, you're just going to have a treat for the next couple of months to tune in and catch up. Awaytogarden.com is where you'll find the website, of course, and the podcast. All right, quick break on The Weekend Gardener. Coming back more with Margaret Roach.
You're listening to The Weekend Gardener with Nikki Jabbour, Sunday mornings at 10 on 1310 News. Nikki will be back in a moment.
On October 12th, the Ottawa Mission will be serving its annual Thanksgiving meal. As you prepare your home for Thanksgiving with your family, there are many men and women who do not have a place to share a warm meal. Your donation of $3.47 provides a hungry person a delicious meal at the Ottawa Mission. Your gift also provides life-changing programs for someone in need in your community. You can change a life. Please donate today at ottawamission.com and help bring joy to someone in need this Thanksgiving.
Take action on changing the face of the Canadian entertainment industry. See and support the 20th annual Real World Film Festival, celebrating 38 films by Canadian Black, Indigenous, Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, and Latin American filmmakers. Play your role in celebrating Canadian talent so you can proudly say you see the full diversity of Canada reflected in the industry. The Real World Film Festival, celebrating 20 years of empowering racially diverse Canadian talent, online October 14th to 19th at realworld.ca.
These days, a hot tub is one hot ticket item. Demand is high and supply is low. So if you're dreaming of your backyard oasis, avoid disappointment. Call Brady's Pool and Spa today. The time to reserve your 2021 hot tub or swim spa is now. And come spring, you'll be immersed in the ultimate in relaxation. Brady's Pool and Spa, Ottawa's finest selection of hot tubs and swim spas. Pre-order your hot tub or swim spa today. 2155 Robertson Road, Bell's Corners, and at Brady'sHotTubsOttawa.com.
So you're moving. How exciting! But stressful. So why squeeze it into one insane hectic day? Cubit can help. Go to Cubit.ca and have a moving container delivered to you. It's easy. Take your time filling your container and have it picked up and delivered to your new location. Or Cubit can store it for you. No pressure, no deadlines. A schedule that works for you. Cubit Portable Storage Containers. Safe, convenient, and affordable. Pack it, store it, move it, Cubit. Get started at Cubit.ca. That's CUBEIT.ca.
Streams of Truth, brought to you by Sportsnet Now.
Hello, sports fan. What do you want your life to be? Do you want to stream the game on any device? Do you want 24/7 access to your favorite sport? Do you want the freedom of streaming sports with just the power of the internet? Well, there's only one answer.
Live stream sports with Sportsnet Now.
The answer is yes. By the way,
starting at $9.99. Visit snnow.ca for details.
Welcome back to The Weekend Gardener with Nikki Jabbour on 1310 News. Once again, here's Nikki Jabbour on News 95.7. Once again, here's Nikki.
And thanks for joining me today for our final show of season 13. I'm so excited that Margaret Roach could join me as well for this day to celebrate our last show. Margaret, of course, is a New York Times columnist. She's the author of A Way to Garden, among many other lovely books. And, of course, she's behind the popular website, awaytogarden.com. And, Margaret, I know now that it's October, too, there's, the garden just seems to really be switching up. We are getting a hard frost tonight. Have you had a big frost in your garden yet in New York State?
I haven't. Now, I'm on a hillside, so the warm air drains uphill over me in the early frosts of the season, which were a couple weeks ago in the lower parts of my town, the sort of flat farming areas. So I have missed it. I don't think I'm going to get one quite yet, but usually by now I would have, yes.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, it is and it isn't, because you know what's going to happen. I'll get a frost on, October 30th, and then a foot of snow or something, and it's going to do the cleanup. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. I don't wish you snow until it goes January. I mean, I guess it's important in the garden. It's a nice winter cover, but we don't want to think about that now. But you did mention, of course, as some of the elements birds need in a garden to really, to create, to live there, I guess, and